This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
It's one thing for a murder suspect to have a close relationship with their parents. It's another to place 3 hours of phone calls to your mother within moments of butchering 4 people. But that's exactly what we've just learned about Bryan Kohberger. Newly unsealed records don't just confirm the calls we've already heard rumors about. They put timestamps, durations, and frequency to them. A 36-minute call not long after returning home to Pullman. A 54-minute call later that morning while he was driving back towards the crime scene. More calls throughout the day, all adding up to more than 3 hours of contact with one person. Mommy. We're not here to demonize a parent for answering the phone. Not at all. But what does this pattern tell us about Bryan Kohberger? Is it just habit, the way some people text their spouse or parent every day? Or is it something more calculated or more desperate? Was he seeking comfort, trying to normalize his day after doing something horrifying? Or was this part of a subconscious need to be validated, to hear the one voice that would never challenge him? And then there's the way he referred to them. Mother, father, not mom or dad in his phone contacts, in his messages and conversations. On one occasion, he texted his mother, "Father, why is mother not answering the phone?" It's such a clinical, formal way to speak about the 2 people closest to you. It borders on theatrical. Some might say Norman Bates-esque. Is this an intentional affectation? A reflection or emotional distance? Or a symptom of a mind that lives in labels rather than relationships? Former FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke, joining us. He spent years dissecting the behaviors of manipulators, spies, and predators. Today, we're breaking down what those calls to mother in timing, tone, and frequency could reveal about Bryan Kohberger's psychology in the hours after the murders. Was his mother simply an emotional anchor in his storm? Was she unknowingly validating the very rage and self-pity that fueled his crimes? Or was this just another part of a lifelong pattern, one where routine, control, and the reassurance of a familiar voice are the only constraints in an otherwise chaotic mind? So let's get into it. Robin, when you first heard about these calls and saw the sheer amount of time he spent on the phone with his mother that day, what went through your mind?
Oh, that's a great question. My first impression was, of course. And then you start on the overlays, because remember, we keep placing ourselves as best we can in his mind about what his needs are. And again, this is purely conjecture, non-scientific in the sense of, non-psychologist side of things. I don't want to overstep for people that probably might know this better. But this to me is the not a missing piece necessarily, but definitely a piece that makes sense because of his need for emotional anchoring is what I'm seeing it as. And the thing that really comes into my mind is, all right, so you're talking about what for all that time?
Yeah.
And so here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking because people that do horrendous things like he did are people out for retribution. They're full of anger, as he has demonstrated, that we've seen both in the jail and reported by others. And so you wonder what he's doing for all that time. I think he's doing nothing but bitching, moaning, and complaining about how he's a victim to his mother, and his mother is validating the living hell out of him. I talking about reps. I think she has reps of listening to crazy for a lot of years.
And does she see it as crazy? I mean, this is her son. This is little Bryan. Obviously they know, or they seem to know that, Bryan's a little different. They've spoken to that. The father has talked about that, has talked about trying to get him to be friends with a neighbor when he drops him off in Washington, and like, hey, he's a little shy, a little different, take him, be friends. So they know that about their son at least. But when you're that close all the time, and I'm assuming that, talking for 3 hours a day maybe not be that huge of a deviation in the life of Bryan Kohberger, just my conjecture. But if you're around it that much, Do you think anything stood out in that call? Do you think there was anything odd to her that morning when she gets a call from Bryan? And I know there's a big thing about the timestamps on this 6:17 a.m. And it was like, well, it's a time difference. Yeah, there is a time difference. So it wasn't necessarily, from what I understand, 6:17 a.m. in Pennsylvania. It was 6:17 a.m. in Washington. So that would make it, what time would that make it in on the East Coast? That would make it later.
Probably 2 hours.
Yeah.
Probably about 2 hours.
2 or 3 hours. Anyway, it's early in the morning, and it's long calls. What do you think was, what do you think Bryan was getting at in these calls other than complaining? It was, do you think they stood out to Mom, I guess is the question, is anything out of the ordinary that day when she
So I guarantee you they stood out to Mom. I guarantee they stood out to everyone. I mean, so I communicate with my children, especially my son, a tremendous amount. And it doesn't matter whether it's your own child or someone that you're in routine contact with. And I mean routine. I mean, a great example is you and I. You and I are in routine contact. It's very easy to see if someone's having a slightly different energy day based on our tempo, our energy, our interactions, all these things that we come to baseline as normal from our interactions. It's easy to see if someone's a little off or having a bad day or worse day. And so especially if you're a parent that has routine, very frequent contact with your children or child, especially in this case, you're going to see something that deviates out of norm. I always call it, the force is, the force is trembling. And, like I can tell within 2 seconds of picking up the phone with my son, whether he's having a good day or a bad day or something's off. And that's just in microseconds. And this is from a very, very healthy individual, not someone who just did something as horrendous as Bryan. So what I'm guessing is that it spiked out of the norm, probably the timing of the call. Although, hey, things happen during the course of a day. But if he's normally calling at the same time every morning, every other morning, just having an off time for calling is going to be different. I guarantee you his energy on that phone is much different. My conjecture is because they're seeing the event that kind of became the straw that broke the camel's back in his mind, which he was planning this for a long time, but it looked like he, based on the horrendous reports we're getting of the children that were mutilated by him, it was a rage. And we know he's got rage issues, and it was a lot. I'm guessing that what had happened with the university threw him into a fit of rage. And so if I was thinking I'm Bryan Kohberger, trying to hide it, because I don't think he's going to share with his mom, who's his emotional stability. He doesn't want to rock that only anchor emotionally he has yet anyway. He's going to be probably overly focused on complaining about what's happening at school and justifying all of his chaos in his brain by that. Maybe not even consciously realizing his chaos brain might be even caused from the murders he just committed, because he's not a smart guy to me. I keep saying it. He's not smart at all, because he's completely unaware of himself. He's completely unaware of because he keeps trying to discover who he is. He copies everyone and everything. Because he's completely empty. So I think it's probably that.
Because right after this initial call, he goes in the bathroom, does his thumbs up picture, goes out, starts driving around, literally calls Mom. After the initial phone call, calls her back as he's driving past the house again, which we've seen the video of the car passing by. He's on the phone again with Mom. He's obviously not going and saying to him, hey, there's the house where I just slaughtered those 4 kids. But like you said, I'm wondering what's coming out of his mouth.
Rage.
Is it? But he seemed to be in such a good mood with the thumbs up. Do you think it's rage, or do you think he's in a really good mood talking about positive things that have nothing to do with the murder?
And when I say rage, I mean, so rage to me is also chaos. I think he was spewing incoherently. Okay. I mean, just think about it. Again, let's put ourselves, from what we understand of what was going on his time period. So he's got a lot of chaos at work. He's got a lot of chaos in his life. He just did something very chaotic, which didn't go according to his plan. And yet I think He's got a lot of conflicting new emotions he hasn't felt before because he just did something he's never done before. He's also, which was fueled by rage. And so he's up on a lot of adrenaline. Adrenaline's coming down, then going back to the house, it's going back up. Just look at all the data points we're getting on him during his time frame. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And if it looks all over the place to us, it's probably all over the place in his brain. And so what he's probably doing, pure conjecture, obviously, spewing all the shit out of his mouth. And what do you typically do? What does his mother probably have reps at in life?
Calming him down.
Calming down her son.
Yeah.
So she might not have even been hearing the content as much as she was just trying to get him to calm down, be safe, stop driving around if she knew he was driving, get back home. So again, when you're kind of throwing it into the situation itself without judging it, just trying to understand it, that seems to make sense that his brain was, because otherwise, if he was thinking and mirroring what he had studied from these other serial killers or mass murderers, because again, he's not technically a serial killer. He's the only thing that deviated from what he studied in others was the fact that he went back to the crime scene so soon after the crime was committed.
Yeah.
That's one of only 3 things he did that deviated from what others have done. And so that meant he was non-thinking at that point, in my estimation anyway.
Sure. The fact that he calls them right away, and he's the only person that he has contact with, obviously he doesn't have friends.
Right.
So his main points of contact, his main people he talks to in his life are mom and dad, it turns out. Probably the only people who are willing to take the time to listen to Bryan Kohberger.
Of course.
Do you think he was trying, and this is a weird thought, but it entered my mind earlier, in some sort of sick way. Like, in no way do I think his mom or dad are going to look at this and go, good job, Bryan. But do you think there was something in Bryan's mind that he's trying to make mom and dad proud? Like he succeeded at, without saying what he did, but was there an element of, look, I succeeded at this. Look, I did this. Because I get like that. When you're younger, when you're in your 20s, you start, kind of achieving things, and there's moments in your life that are good, and this is not good, but I think in Kohberger's mind, it was good. You like to talk to the people that care about you, that you care about. And a lot of times that's your parents, if you have a healthy relationship there. And the fact that he was so all about talking to them that day, is there a level of being proud about this and getting adoration from his parents in some way, shape, or form, but not obviously for the crime, because I'm assuming they don't know about the crime, but in some other way, shape, or form, throwing other things out there where he could get that adoration? Or is it just a desperate attempt at something normal after doing something insanely abnormal?
There's an element in there. I'm going to flip it a little bit on the language, I think. So What I'm thinking is that his mother gave him such at least from it looks like, his mother gave him such unconditional acceptance and love and validation that there's no need to impress her because she already thinks he walks on the water. Potentially, because again, we don't know, from the frequency of contact. So I don't think it was done to try to seek approval or impress his parents in any way, because he did all he did for himself and to be grandiose in other eyes. I go back to the Ramsland idea on this, is that, he wants to be studied, he wants to be notable, he wants to be notorious, whether they knew exactly who he was or just as this image of someone to someone like Ramsland, who he respected. So I think from the unrealistic hope that I think people have in situations like this, without saying, hey, look what I did, because that's not right, he can't do that, is that because of the amount of bitching, moaning, and complaining he was doing, he's seeking to hear his mother help him rationalize that, oh, well, it would make sense, listen to all this, that these people would deserve to die. So I think he's hoping to hear someone, the only person that understands and accepts him non-judgmentally, help him rationalize the horrendous things he just did without him having to ask for it.
Yeah.
So he's hoping, I'm like, why keep calling otherwise? Besides venting, I mean, we see this in people in our lives. So we want people to rationalize our behavior for us so we can accept it. So they accept us.
I mean, as much as and cold and callous as Kohberger is, it feels like mom and dad are the security blanket in some way, shape, or form to him. And just the familiarity of speaking to them in his chaotic mind, maybe that presents some sort of calm or peace.
It is. It's routine. Routine makes us safe.
Yep.
You know, especially, you know, my wife's a teacher and they just went back to school, and some of the things that, and your daughter too just went back. And at every age, but especially at a younger age, or especially if our minds are not developing as fast as the people around us, and I think Kohberger is part of this, is that one of the things that helps us feel safe is routine. And if part of that routine is a call home. It's why he kept doing it in jail. It's why people, I've watched a lot of these videos of people that are former prisoners, you know, former inmates, you know, the things that make people and inmates feel safe in jail is the daily routine. You start screwing with a routine, man, and people go bonkers on you. Because routine helps us feel safe. And so I think part of his routine was not just the unconditional validation he's getting from his mother, but the routine of talking to his mother. I mean, my kids do it with me too. I mean, the routine of texting, you know, my kids of when and how, and, you know, it allows us both to feel safe and comfortable. And so I think that's part of what he was looking for.
The verbiage that Kohberger used when talking about his parents is rather interesting. Mother, father. Very, very formal. Some may say Norman Batesy. That's what I got out of it right away. But that's how they were labeled in his phone. Mother, father. And then a text to his dad. Why? And I'm just paraphrasing. I don't have the exact text in front of me. But it's something to the effect of, Father, why is mother not answering the phone? There's a lot to unpack. I mean, me and my daughter joke like that. Like, I'll pick her up from school like, hello, daughter. Hello, father. How was your day? But it's in jest.
Very Wednesday Addams.
Yes, we're making fun of it's satire of anyone who would talk like that. But this is real. This is how he communicates. This is how he refers to them. Your thoughts on that, oh behavioral genius?
Empty shell. When you're an empty shell without emotion and without empathy, you resolve to the labels and meanings that are descriptive. That's it. And it's remember, there's when thinking of Kohberger, so many times people are really overthinking this guy. He is so completely empty. That's why I was talking about this the other day. I think it was probably with you. So all we do is talk about this guy. You know, he is so devoid of absolutely everything that there's nothing there but what society puts into it, or what he's choosing for society that he takes from it. And so a label of mother and father, well, that's the label. That's what they are. They're mother and father. So I'm going to call them mother and father, unless I'm trying to mimic and mirror something else that's more appropriate in the situation. Because we've seen and heard from other people, at times he can be very charming. Well, that was a script he rehearsed in that time period. If you catch him off guard in a situation that he doesn't have a script for, that he hasn't studied someone for, he has no idea what to do. This is why he sucked so bad at destroying 4 lives, because he couldn't think.
Went off script.
Mimicking. He's mimicking in a stovepipe like this.
What we've just heard from Robin Dreeke is a disturbing look at a very human connection. One that in most families would be a point of love and stability, but here seems to double as a pressure valve for chaos. Those calls to his mother on the day of the murders weren't just about killing time. They may have been about maintaining routine, about keeping that one unshakable relationship alive so he could feel tethered to something normal after doing something profoundly abnormal. They may have also been about fishing for validation, feeding her complaints and self-pity until she unknowingly gave him the emotional absolution that he wanted. And then there's the whole mother and father language. On its own, sure, some people are just formal. But paired with everything else we know, it feels clinical, detached. Like he's labeling furniture rather than referring to people who raised him. Robin framed it perfectly. Someone so devoid of identity and self-awareness that he simply applies the label that fits the role without the intimacy or warmth that usually comes with it. This part of the story also forces us to think about what wasn't said on those calls. He wasn't confessing. He wasn't panicking about being caught. In Robin's view, he was likely spinning grievances about school, justifying perceived slights, unloading rage without naming its true source. His mother, out of love or habit, may have been trying to calm him, reassure him, smooth over his chaos, just as she probably had many times before. That's the chilling part. The possibility that his emotional state in those calls wasn't wildly different from other days. If you're used to hearing your son in a heightened, agitated state, how do you pick out the day when that agitation comes from mass murder instead of bad grades or a fight with a professor? It's the kind of detail that won't make or break a legal case, but it speaks volumes to anyone trying to understand what drives a killer like Kohberger. The calls to mother weren't an afterthought. They were part of his post-crime behavior, just as telling. In their own way, as wiping down a car or bagging up trash. They show us who he turns to, how he manages his emotions, and perhaps how he keeps his self-image intact. Coming up in our conversation, we're going to move to the emotional anchors, to obsessive research. It's Christmas Day, and while his family celebrates, Bryan Kohberger is diving deep into the histories of more than 20 serial killers. On Christmas Day, what was he looking for, and why? We're going to dive into that with Robin Dreeke. Press subscribe so you don't miss that part of the conversation. And let us know your thoughts so far in the comment section on YouTube. If you're not there already, search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi and press subscribe and comment. Do the same thing wherever you get podcasts. Press subscribe and search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Until next time, I am Tony Bruschi, and we'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.